a government, as a sovereign.
Huge, huge. Gauri, bringing you back in, give us a sense of what it must have taken to get to this point. Given that the trade battle lines had been drawn by both sides, India had refused to cow down to the ridiculous demands that had been made, we understand, by the American side. And the fact that some kind of a middle ground appears to have been achieved, that in itself appears to be a really big situation, because I remember, we were chatting about this and wondering how long this trade negotiation is going to go on for. And we were talking about months, perhaps even over a year. That they've been able to reach so far means compromises must have happened on both sides, Gauri.
And Shiv, is also indicative of the fact that India has the stomach to do these big trade negotiations. We closed one with UK, we closed one with EU, and on our terms is what we have been able to do so with US. If what Nisha is saying is correct, as her sources are pointing out, at 18%, we are 2% cheaper than Vietnam. We are just about 3% more expensive than Japan. Japan closed it at 15%. Vietnam is 20%. I'm not counting some of the other smaller economies like Bangladesh and others. So to that extent, it's a great deal at 18%, and without nominating President Trump for a Nobel, and being able to do negotiations on our own terms. And that included also looking the Trump administration in the eye in the face of those really racist personal attacks that came in, where India was very responsible, Shiv. We were very responsible, matured in our handling of the situation. It was very volatile, but we stuck to our core demand, which is that our national interest in terms of our domestic industry needs to be protected, even in the wake of such volatility.
Jayant, apart from the obvious sort of wisdom, which is that nothing is over until it's over, and even then it's not over in Trump's world, I think the Indian government, the Indian diplomatic machinery, will perhaps never again take its eye off the ball when it comes to US relations, even for a moment, and especially under this president.
No, absolutely. I think if you look at the history in the last 10 months or so, I think no matter whether talks were on or not on, but, I'm given to understand almost 50% of the focus of Ministry of Commerce and the key team there has been on the US, and 50% is all countries put together, including countries like Australia, UK, European Union, UAE, and wherever we have had a deal. So I think, given that, the American behavior has been changing very, very fast, and, the responses, on one hand, calling India a failed economy, the next day calling Prime Minister Modi a great friend and a great leader, and so on and so forth. So I think there has been so much of oscillation. The pendulum has been going to the two extremes so very often that, it was keeping Indian negotiation team on the toes all through last 10 months that I have some insights of. So I think it's interesting, but I don't think there'll be, one needs to be unduly worried about, because one thing is very clear. Even Prime Minister's statement has said very clearly it is 18% is what exporters will have to pay, right? So it's not 43%, it is 18%. Yeah. I think that becomes very clear. And I think if you look at some of the countries like Vietnam, Sri Lanka, they have 20%. If you look at Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, they have 19%. So we are slightly better off than that. With the European Union, they have 15%. We are still 3% higher. And Japan and UK have 10%. So I think we are still higher. But I think 18% is something which is, I would think, of course, it could have been lower, but it is reasonable. And Indian exports can absorb that, can bring, more cost efficiency and so on and so forth. And will be able to sustain, 18% tariff. So I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of promise going forward. And I personally believe that, if this falls through and it doesn't get converted into a signed deal very early, that, then the US stands to lose its face,
I agree.
More than anybody else.
I completely agree with that. This is something that the US needs at least as much as India.